You've probably noticed that during this study, I have shared a lot of experiences and personal testimonies. I have done it on purpose because I want you to see that I am just as much work in progress as you are. I am just as much relying on God's wisdom and God's leading and God's ability to help me as you are. See, what I found is that if I don't lose myself in my preaching and teaching, then I simply communicate information and I become irrelevant. And the last thing I want to do is to give you scriptures without explaining them and showing you how they apply to my life. And today I want to look at being vulnerable, how we can actually take risks and let people see us for who we truly are and allow God to manifest His glory through us in our vulnerabilities. All my life growing up as a teenager and as a young person, even as a young adult, I tried to hide who I truly was. I tried to hide the way I lived. See, it's because my life was a little bit of a mess. Growing up without a dad, I have a beautiful father, but he wasn't there with me every day because of our divorce, the divorce that happened when I was 2. And my mom turned to alcohol when I was about 12, and she became quite dependent on it. So my house was always a little bit of a mess, and I never knew what I would come home to. I never knew if I would have food on the table and what was coming next. So I hid it. No one at my school knew about it. No one in my neighborhood, the friends that I lived with, knew about it because I learned to hide it. I learned to fake it. I learned to put on masks and pretend like my life was just wonderful. Everything in my life was wonderful. I hid my true feelings. I hid in my shame, and I hid from showing people who I truly was. But when Jesus Christ entered my life, I saw there's a better way. And today I want to share with you that better way. If we want to fulfill God's plan on our lives, we will have to be us. If you want to fulfill God's plan on your life, you will have to be you. And I will have to be me. And it's time for us to take off the masks. It's time for us to take off anything that we're trying to protect ourselves with or from, and to take a risk. Can I ask you today, take a risk with God? When I say take a risk, I'm not just speaking about stepping out in faith or actioning anything or something, but I'm asking you to take the risk to let yourself be seen. Be vulnerable, be transparent. Let God truly manifest Himself through you. These days, I'm a true believer that I can't be actually comfortable with someone else's darkness if I'm not comfortable with my own. So I had to become familiar with my own darkness. I had to discuss that darkness with the Lord. I had to come to Him in prayer. I had to bring Him my petitions, my brokenness, my fears, all my insecurities, and say, God, will you accept me as I am? And He said, yes, I actually love you the way you are. And I want to show you off to the world. And I want you to bring healing to other people. Until you are comfortable with your own darkness, you will not be able to be present with other people's darkness. So being vulnerable, when I say about being vulnerable, it's not the same as being transparent. See, right now I'm being vulnerable with you, but it is still an edited version. I'm not being completely transparent, and it's wise not to do that, because the only person that I want to be really transparent to is God. I want to show Him all my fears, all my anxieties, all my worries, all my insecurities. I want Him to see me as I am, and I want Him to speak wisdom and comfort into my life. I'm not going to be vulnerable to the people that I don't know. I will be vulnerable to a certain point where I will share things. I will not pretend to be someone that I'm not. But true transparency, I believe, can only be with God and with those people that you really trust. And trust is a key. We have to trust people with our weaknesses, so that we know that they will not condemn us or shame us, but they will build us up. And as we look at the story of Moses in Exodus chapter 18 today, did you know that Moses also had to be transparent and vulnerable before God and people as well? We see that in chapter 17, he actually had to be quite vulnerable to his father-in-law Jethro, who comes to him and he gives him wisdom. See, by this stage, Moses has done miracles in Egypt. Well, God did miracles in Egypt on behalf of Moses. Through Moses, he enabled him. And now Moses has led Israel out of Egypt, and they are in the desert, and God is providing for them in a miraculous ways. But people have a lot of questions for Moses, and they are lining up to have those questions answered from morning till night, the Bible says. And here comes Jethro. He sees Moses, he observes Moses, and then he comes to him and says, what you do is not wise. Do you know that you must have people who can speak into your life, who can come into your life and say, you know what you're doing is not wise. Let me suggest you another way. Let me encourage you this way, not that way. Let me rebuke you in a kind of gentle way so that it's for your good. And I believe God does that as well. When we are vulnerable and when we are transparent with God, He gets permission to come in and correct us. Because see, God is not only a God, as we spoke last week, who wants to heal us, but He is a God who is a gardener, so He wants to prune us, and He wants to make us well for the seasons to come. So we find that God is more than able to heal us, and He is more than able to speak to us, and He actually wants to speak to us. And as we conclude today's session, I just want to leave you with Isaiah 41:10. It says this, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be frightened, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. Yes, I will uphold you with my saving right hand. God is saying yes to your weaknesses. God is saying yes to your vulnerabilities. And God is saying yes to you taking off the mask and taking the risk to be vulnerable. It will take risks for us to live out God-given life. It will take a risk for you to pray for a friend. It will take a risk for you to share your testimony. It will take a risk for you to be who you are. But God is with you, and He is saying, yes, I will help you. Yes, I will uphold you. He's a God of yes for you. So don't be afraid to be transparent with your Lord, because He wants to set you free from every mask that has enslaved you and every lie that the enemy has spoken over your life.